All right, welcome into another Auburn Live show. I am Justin Hokanson from auburnlive.com. Make sure you subscribe to auburnlive.com if you're not a part of it. It's $1 for the rest of the year. No, I'm sorry. It's $1 for the next year, but that only goes on for maybe a couple of more days from the time you're going to see this. So that's by the time Auburn plays Mercer, that deal will not be happening. So go take advantage of it now, auburnlive.com. All right, let's jump into this. TJ Finley named Auburn's starting quarterback. To nobody's surprise over the last week, I think early in camp, this was a three-man race. It developed more into Finley. I think after that first scrimmage, Finley moved into that one spot. And the last week or so, it's been pretty evident that he would start Auburn's opener against Mercer. That becomes official on Sunday through a lot of different outlets confirming it. And so the news itself, not all that shocking. Got some content up at auburnlive.com about this decision. And I want to say, regardless of what you think about TJ Finley, regardless of what you think about how he did last year or what he's going to do for the team, it's of my belief that the decision to name him the starter for Mercer was the correct decision based on what these guys did in the fall camp. I don't think Harsen had another option. Zach Calzada came in and didn't perform the way he thought he would, didn't perform the way a lot of people internally thought he would. There's a lot of different reasons for that I won't really get into. I mean, I know some of them, but it's, there's a lot going on there. But for whatever reason, he didn't live up to the hype in terms of the fall camp. Now, when I say that, here's what I mean. Statistically, from what I understand, Calzada and Finley were really pretty close. Completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions. There's not a massive difference in those two in what they did during fall camp. Robby Ashford was further behind those two in completion percentage, a lot farther behind. And so as far as that goes, Calzada wasn't bad. Where Finley was better were the intangibles, whether it's cadence, whether it's alignment and assignment, whether it's getting the plays from the sideline, getting everybody lined up correctly, whether it's the play clock running down and calling a timeout or checking out of a play or whatever it might be. All those things that Brian Harsen values, TJ Finley has been better at and shown better skills during fall camp than Zach Calzada. And it makes a huge difference for Brian Harsen. I mean, that's the difference maker ultimately. He wants somebody, what kind of quarterback TJ Finley is or what he's going to be this fall. I don't know. I don't know how much better he's gotten since last year. I don't think a lot better, but we'll see. But if he's somebody that's reliable, if he's somebody that Brian Harsen at least feels good enough in terms of the intangible type stuff and the execution and the operation of the offense, if he feels good there, TJ is going to get the start. So really the decision's not surprising. It was a practical decision. It was a logical decision based on what they did. And it was the right decision based on what these guys did in fall camp. It was. Now, once Mercer hits and you start putting game tape, things could change. You got Mercer, you got San Jose State, Penn State. We'll see how this thing looks. We'll see how Finley runs the offense. Let's see how Robby Ashford comes off the bench and runs the offense. Let's see if Zach Calzada gets any reps. So you'll have more data after the first couple of games to sort of figure out things can change. But as of right now, it was the correct decision, naming TJ Finley the starter. The players think he had the best camp. He's got good rapport with his teammates. So from that, he's got the locker room. There's no issues there. And really, the locker room likes all three of those guys. There's really not an issue with any of them. But I think if you ask those guys, they would say TJ had the better camp. And so it's not a surprising decision that it's not a surprising decision if you hear a little girl talking in the background. It's my daughter trying to watch Paw Patrol. So she might chime in with a little Finley opinion here in a minute, but we'll see. So in terms of the decision, the right decision, it was correct. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens the first two games. Finley will get the start. Robby's going to play. Okay, Robby Ashford. It'll be interesting to see, first of all, are Ashford and Calzada listed as 2A, 2B, or is it going to be Ashford 2, Calzada 3? That might be interesting. That's just kind of to me, more of a strategic thing to let both those guys stay in the race. But it'll be interesting to see what Robby does in the first two games. Does he get actual drives to run the offense, or is he strictly a package guy? Is he strictly a goal line, short yardage, third down, speed option, use him in certain situations type of guy? Or does he get out there when the game is still close or relatively close or snaps matter? Does he get out there and have a chance to run the offense? I'm curious to see that these first two games. I'm not sure Zach Calzada gets in these first two games. I think where he is on the depth chart, unless Auburn's up like 60-7, I'm not sure he's going to get in, because the reality is TJ Finley needs snaps too, and Robby Ashford needs snaps. So even though you would love to see all three of those guys in a game, you need to see TJ and Robby play. And so I think that really hurts Zach Calzada in terms of him getting in the game in those first two games. I'm not sure he's going to get in, but we'll have to wait and see. Look, here's what Harsen said about TJ Finley. I'll read it to you during the camp, and I think this says a lot. He says, "I've always been impressed with TJ as far as his command. He's like a coach on the field. He picks things up quickly. He listens to the nuances. If there's a coaching point, he'll remember the coaching point, and he'll echo it when it comes up." I think that says a lot. It talks about his accuracy in operation. That's what Brian Harsen likes about TJ. And so whether or not TJ's more accurate, whether his footwork's any better, whether he makes better decisions, whether he gets the ball out quicker, takes less sacks, that remains to be seen. But it's the things that Harsen wants to take some things off the table with his quarterback, right? Like, he doesn't want to walk out there on Saturday and deal with a quarterback that's emotional, that's a roller coaster, that maybe he's got to worry about a temper tantrum or a helmet throwing or whatever it might be. So the more he can take those things off the table, the better. And TJ brings some of that. You're not going to have to worry about him in terms of some of those operational things. He's pretty calm on the field, maybe too calm sometimes. I don't know. But that's huge to be able to take those things off the field. Now you just worry about execution. If some of those things linger and you got to worry about some of that stuff, that's the last thing Harsen wants to deal with on the football field. The last thing. The very last thing. Harsen tells his quarterbacks, when you go out on the football field, I don't want your feelings. I don't want your emotions. Like, don't bring them out there. It's you basically be a robot in terms of your focus and your execution on the play, your operation of the offense, etc. That's what he wants to see. Not like he's saying you can't celebrate a big play, but we're talking about the ups and downs of a quarterback, a bad play, a drop, an interception, a sack. And when those things happen, he wants you to be even keel. That's what he wants. And TJ brings a lot of that. And so him winning the job wasn't that surprising as of the last week. The most surprising thing is Zach Calzada during his fall camp didn't play up to his ability. He just didn't. I think he got better. I think he started slow. I think it became a mental thing with him, and he couldn't really get over the hump. He had a bad first scrimmage that I think got him off on the wrong track. And from there, he never really got over the hump, and he could never jump back in. I mean, the second scrimmage was situational. Didn't really have an opportunity to make a lot of strides there. And then you're into the third scrimmage. It's hard to do much at that point. That first scrimmage was the big deal. That first week of practice scrimmage, like, that said a lot. And so that's why I think it'll also be interesting. Does Zach do anything in practice in the next 2 weeks? Does he start to get things in practice? Does he look better to the point where they say, maybe we need to try to get him a drive in here? You know, let's say Auburn's offense has just been kind of so-so the first 2 weeks, and Penn State's just kind of going so-so. The door could be open for Zach to get in the game, but there's a lot of things that I think have to happen before he gets a real legitimate chance in a game to see what he can do. And so it'll be interesting to see. So as far as the decision, not surprising. I think the other thing about this that was interesting was the announcement on Sunday happened via Chris Lowe on ESPN, who reported it on Twitter at about noon or so, 11:30 on Sunday, which is odd. We talked to Brian Harsen back in the media days in Atlanta, and we asked him about the quarterback race. And Harsen had a very, very well thought out, nuanced answer in terms of, here's how we're going to announce it. We want to make it a big deal for the starter. We want to respect the backups and the work they put in. We're going to do it right. I mean, he had an answer like he had already planned out how the thing was going to go, how the announcement was going to go when they announced the starter. I mean, what he said, you'd be like, oh, he's already thought about this. So for the news to come on a Sunday afternoon at 11:30, when TJ Finley wasn't told, Robby Ashford wasn't told, Zach Calzada wasn't told. I mean, there's quarterbacks in that room that found out who was starting against Mercer on Twitter. That's how they found out. They then were notified later. Now, they knew their position on the depth chart. So if you asked Robby or Zach, if you said, hey, were you surprised TJ was the starter? They'd probably say no. But if you say, hey, did you know who the starter was for Mercer before you saw it on Twitter? They would say no. That was a weird thing about Sunday that I wasn't expecting. I think a lot of the people that, a lot of us that cover it and pay attention to what Harsen has said about how it was going to happen. And that was surprising the way it happened. And it was more surprising that the players didn't know. You go through this quarterback battle and then to not find out face to face and say, hey, here's the decision I've made. This dude's starting against Mercer. And to just get on Twitter basically and see it was a little surprising. That was a little surprising. But other than that, the decision itself wasn't surprising, and it's going to be TJ Finley to start things off, and we'll see how it goes. He's got the respect of his teammates, and so there's no issues there. We'll see how much better he's gotten at understanding the offense. And the other element that we won't know until we see is what does the offense look like? Eric Keesaw, offensive coordinator, no idea what he's going to be like. How much, how involved is Harsen going to be in play calls? Who's calling the plays primarily? Like, there's still a lot of things we don't even know about the offense, how dynamic it's going to be, how creative it's going to be, how simple it's going to be. I don't know. To me, there's still a lot of, not concern, but just a little bit of a mystery and a question mark around what exactly. It'll look similar to what you saw under Mike Bobo, but it's still going to be different because Mike Bobo is going to have some different, they're all going to be a little bit different. Mike Bobo is going to do different things than Brian Harsin's going to do differently, and et cetera. But I think that's going to be something interesting to watch as well. So anyway, that's the news. TJ Finley's the starter, not surprising. Robby Ashford's going to play. It'll be interesting to see how they use them. And then what, if any, do they use Zach Calzada in those first two games? And then what happens if Calzada's not used at all in the first 2 or 3 games? Does a guy like that stick around? I think we'll have to watch that and see. But Finley's the guy. We'll see how it goes. He's yet to start a game and win a game for Auburn. He started games last year and didn't win a game. He came in, obviously, against Georgia State, threw a touchdown, but the games he started at the end of the year, Auburn didn't win. So Mercer might be Finley's first game to start at Auburn and actually win. That would be a good start to the season, and then we'll see how it goes. Continued coverage, auburnlive.com. Appreciate everybody joining us. We'll see you until next time.